Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Unreal Episode 2 of Season 1 specifically. This is called Relapse, this episode, and this is a sponsored review from Patreon, so thank you to Board Now for sponsoring this episode. I was quite pleased with Episode 1. I'd never heard of the show going into it, and I was actually quite excited to dive in and see how it would be on a second episode, how it would be now that it's set up its core ideas. And it mostly continues the types of ideas that it kind of started out with. Once again, it's pushing the main character, Rachel, into manipulating someone, possibly even worse than she did in episode 1, including this episode of trying to convince and manipulate someone who's just lost a parent. And that goes all sorts of messy places. We get a little bit more Quinn's romantic life, because I think a big part of this show just after 2 episodes is this idea that these main characters who are making this show are trying to orchestrate specific drama with a complete disregard for the feelings of the people they're actually conducting, right? Trying to turn some of them into villains. One of the big plot points in episode 1, of course, was that the obvious villain of the girls for the TV show didn't make it to round 2. So this episode, one of the main plots is that both Rachel and 2 of the other producers are all basically given a challenge of trying to turn one of the other girls into a villain, and that's a big part of this episode. But like I was saying, whilst they're orchestrating all this from other people that they're manipulating, their own love lives or their own personal stuff starts creaking in. With Rachel especially, I mean, the end of this episode is literally Rachel's private life being exposed to everyone else and it flooding everywhere and being something that they don't want to have there, but it kind of forces its way into the environment anyway. They're not supposed to be having drama coming from the people making the show, and yet by the end of the episode, here it is. And there's a build up to that happening, which I'll get to. And likewise with Quinn and her turning out to not just be in a relationship with the guy that's like the owner of the show, or the whoever's in charge, whatever Chet's role is. I never quite caught his actual title, but we find out this episode that Chet is married and that Quinn has been waiting for her, or waiting for him to leave her. Waiting for him to leave his wife is the sense that I'm trying to get out, and that she actually is shocked to find out that the wife is now pregnant, and it's this kind of like, oh wait, you're never going to leave your wife, this is all just, I'm just the mistress, I'm just the second wife, as she puts it. This was actually kind of a surprising turn of events to me, not because it's a surprising plot line in any way, shape or form, but the character of Quinn that was given to me in episode 1, and this is not a critique, this is just what makes it kind of surprising, is that she was presented to me as a very kind of strong character who, she didn't come across as someone who was just the other woman, or at least if she was the other woman, she was just kind of okay with that, and she'd made that decision. She didn't seem like someone who was in a relationship hoping that the guy would, it just, I guess I never saw her being the one who was being manipulated or vulnerable, and perhaps that's because she is the leader of the show that's manipulating everyone. So the idea that she in some way has been emotionally manipulated by this guy, by saying, hey, no, I'm going to leave the wife, I'm going to stay with you, hey, he literally gives her a house this episode to try and keep her on board. She doesn't seem to take it, but I feel like we're not done with this plotline, so we'll see where it goes. But that was an interesting turn of events, because it wasn't a situation I expected to see her in this quickly. I don't know if I want to quite say she was vulnerable in this episode, but more so that I just didn't expect her to have been taken advantage of. She felt too strong to be in this position, so it was actually kind of a nice surprise to say, oh no, she is in this position, and what does that say about her, and the fact that she's hiding this from everyone, we've got all this stuff going on. Well, she's not hiding it that much, because she was kind of like sitting on Chet's lap last episode in front of a lot of people as everyone was packing up, so I feel like it's not a secret that they're in a relationship to everyone on set. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, that was pretty much that plotline. So that's out of the way. One of the plot lines that builds up to the ending this episode is that Rachel owes money for rent, her roommate is very pissed. In fact, she didn't even stay at her apartment. Maybe because she's avoiding her roommate. The episode opens with Rachel waking up in what looks like a shelf, like a big shelf, but a shelf all the same. She's got like a blanket up, and she's like just turning her underwear inside out, and she's like just trying to put on some deodorant. She's kind of gross. I actually kind of like this opening because it just kind of set this idea up that one, she's probably down on her luck, but just the idea that she wakes up in a truck. It ends up being one of the equipment trucks. She lifts up the shutter, it's blinding sunlight, and she hits a button, and she just slowly goes down out of shot because she's standing on the ramp of the truck that's now lowering after she's pressed the button. I actually, if I have a critique, it's just that I wish it cut to the title, the opening title, before anything else happened. I thought just her head getting out of frame and then cut to UnReal would have been a really good cut to title moment. Instead, she does respond to someone on the radio briefly in the very next shot, and then it cuts to the title. I thought, oh no, I felt like just her head got out of frame would have really sold this idea of her being down on her luck, of her literally going down out of frame, because that's how she feels right now. I think that would have been a nice moment. But there's some hilarity that comes from this, where she ends up jumping in the shower with Adam the Bachelor, not because she's making a move on him, but just because she really wants to have a shower. So she makes him turn around and gets in and quickly cleans herself up, and is very satisfied by doing so. Again, just made for a fun scene. I feel like the first episode had this as well, where Rachel ends up in these weird situations where she's lying down the bottom of a limo, and it's kind of like she's shadowing people, and she's just kind of like doing stuff that's unconventional. And obviously Adam's like thinking, oh, you're coming on to me, aren't you? And she's like, nah, I'm not, you wish, just look that way. Again, it presents as this very confident character, and she is very confident in a lot of weird ways that most people wouldn't be confident in, but she's clearly got a lot of personal problems that creep up through other areas of her life, one of which is her roommate showing up with all of her stuff and saying, I'm renting out your room, you're gone now, I still have your laptop though, I'm basically holding that ransom until you pay me for the last 3 months of rent. And she is adamant, right? Because we never met this character last episode, and all we really get from her is that she really wants her money. And she's like, you've got 2 days or whatever it is to give me this money, or I'm going to reveal the personal stuff that's on your laptop. That may be the second time she phones about it. She actually makes that threat. I can't remember exactly when that first came up. But this is what builds up to this ending where Rachel's competing for a bonus to try and build a new villain. Whatever producer builds a villain that they can use for the rest of the season. Because they make it clear, Quinn makes it very clear that they built like a sort of almost rough storyline on the board based around, I think it was Brittany was the name of the girl last episode who got kicked out. But they had a whole villain plot with her, that she was going to be the linchpin of the storylines. And now they need to replace that. So she's offering a bonus for whoever she ends up picking as the new villain, based on who these 3 producers are going to produce. So the end of the episode makes it feel like she's going to avoid it. She's going to avoid having to have all this private stuff leaked. And we even see an example of it. It's intimate videos with the camera guy, her ex, whose name was Jeremy. It's been a month between episodes. I'm using my cheat sheet here. Right? I can't remember all the names just yet. But I think what's notable about that is that not only is there a scene in the episode where Jeremy's girlfriend comes up to her and says, hey, you've been going through a rough time. And as a genuine human being tries to say, hey, we can be there for you. There's no ill will here because you're my boyfriend's ex, or I should say fiance's ex. And, it's like Rachel almost doesn't know how to respond to someone being that genuinely nice and sweet to her. It's just kind of awkward. But then there's a scene later on, just before the end of the episode, where she almost tries to warn Jeremy. She says, hey, Jeremy. She actually says his name. He turns around and she just kind of goes, oh, never mind. And it's just one of those moments. But you can tell what she was about to do is she was about to warn him that this might happen, that this is impending, that there's private stuff that we did together that's on this laptop, that this roommate has directly threatened will be sent to everyone who works here. And she chooses not to do it. And I almost feel like that's going to be her biggest... well, maybe not her biggest sin of the episode, but her biggest personal life sin of the episode, because what she does with Anna and the show is actually probably nastier, but her bigger sin in the episode as far as it relates to her own personal life. Like, I feel like if this happened, like this footage leaked, and then next episode we get a fallout from, obviously it'd be awkward, it'd be weird with Jeremy and his fiance, but maybe had she warned Jeremy and said, hey, I think this is going to happen, it would have been nice still, but at least she would have done the right thing by warning him so he could warn his fiance and they could be prepared for it, and she went about it the right way. The fact that she could have warned him, almost did, and chose not to, is the most damning thing about the sequence of events in her personal life, I felt like. So that's where I am on this at the end. Notably, the biggest grin in the room when this was leaking at the very end of the episode was Shia, who's the producer who was kind of taking over for Rachel, and now Rachel keeps like one-upping and not even trying to. She's not even got like a vendetta with her, but I think Shia does feel pissed at Rachel, and she is got a shit-eating grin on her face at the end of this episode that something bad has happened to her. So, fun. Fun times. To actually get into what goes on in the show, though, this episode is that they're trying to make this villain, like I said. They have different tactics. So Jay, who's the black guy on the team, he takes the two black contestants aside, and he says to them, hey, a black woman's never won this competition. And one of them says, well, how many times have they even got to the last four, the final four? And he's like, twice in 13 seasons. And to do so, you're going to have to do certain things. And he basically says, he's trying to convince them to act up, that just being a normal person and being nice is not going to keep you around. The way you're going to keep around is if you overplay a character and you're loud and you become... So he's trying to make a villain, and he's basically trying to say to them, the only way you'll stick out is if you're a loud-mouthed black woman, right? That's what he's effectively saying to them. And one of the two women is like, that's insulting. I'm not going to do that. I've got a master's degree. I didn't get a degree so I could be some stereotype on TV, quite rightly. Whereas the other woman, whose name I think was Athena, was like, hey, I just want to get famous so that when I open my own like beauty salon, like people will show up because they know who I am. I'm game. So that's kind of what tactic he takes, and that turns into her trying to create conflict with Faith. You know, that was the sort of the one from the she's from the Midwest. She everyone was joking her looking like she was a farmer last episode, and everyone was surprised that he kept her on. Athena intentionally steps into her when they're doing ballroom dancing as the next kind of like episode task, and then immediately starts trying to like railroad her into sounding racist by trying to... I mean, Faith, I think all she says is, oh, don't mind me, I've got 2 left feet. The most innocent thing she could possibly say. And then Athena goes, and what's that supposed to mean? Is like, that I'm a bad dad, sir? And she kind of turns it into, oh, so you're saying black people have rhythm. And, you know, she really like contours it as much as she humanly possibly can into... And it ends up with Faith having these really bad sound bites of her saying, I have tons of friends who are black, right? Which is the most stock answer to being accused of being racist ever. She's completely innocent in the exchange, but it doesn't matter. They've created this character out of Athena and put Faith on this defensive position to create some amount of drama. So it's another example of being insidious. I actually really appreciated that the other woman who was asked to maybe do this, the other black woman, I really appreciate that right after this happens, she walks past, looks Jay, the producer, right in the eye and says, yeah, nice work. Like, I do appreciate that some of them are noticing the manipulation that's going on, and they're saying, oh, that's what you wanted me to be. You wanted me to be that. And now that I'm actually seeing it in action, I'm even more happy that I told you to piss off. Like, that was the vibe I got from her in that scene. So I really appreciated that. I gave it a bit more depth. We get to have fun with how they're successfully manipulating people, but we also get other smart characters acknowledging it and you know, getting around it and not dehumanizing themselves, which is also nice to see, just so that it's not all people who are quick to just throw in their integrity at any moment. So there's that. Shia picks the school teacher, who's Pepper. There's a lot of names in this show, so I'm doing well, right? So Pepper is this really kind of sweet school teacher, and they're doing interviews with her, and she is like, "Hey, why do you always do that voice?" He's like, "What voice?" He's like, "You do that really sweet kind of voice where you're, because you say everyone's a sweetheart, and you say, oh, it's nice as all being together." Like, she's being really positive about everyone, and again, it's someone who's just seemingly being nice and is being manipulated into thinking, yeah, everyone thinks you're a weirdo because you act all nice all the time. Maybe you should like change it up. Like, they're saying that you're kind of young and naive and that you've probably never been with a man before, and that snowballs into her going up to Adam, getting kind of sultry, grabbing him, near the crotch, and whispering in his ear that, hey, dump this other girl in the next selection and I'll make it worth your while, and kisses him on the mouth, and gets really kind of aggressive with it. And it's successful enough. In fact, at the end of the episode, before Rachel shows up, she is going to be the pick of the new villain, because this has made her look like she's two-faced, like she's acting one way to everyone else. I really appreciated in the montage at the end when they showed the edit of how they're making her look bad. They cut to an interview with one of the other girls who actually says that, where, hey, she acts one way with us and then a different way with Adam, and then it shows the kiss and the little whisper in the ear, and it really kind of sets up the, like, oh, okay, you're building a story here, you're really making her look bad by the way you're cutting this together. But of course, neither of these two win. The one that wins is the one that Rachel is tasked with turning into the villain. And again, it's this woman who I think has a law degree. Her name's Anna. And she starts laying the groundwork for her being the villain. I can't even remember what she says to her at the first interview. It's almost irrelevant, because almost immediately we get like the information that her dad has had some kind of heart attack and that he's in the hospital. And Quinn immediately says, don't tell her. She'll just want to leave. He'll be fine. He's in the hospital. Let's just, go on with it. And what's really bad about this is that I think you could predict in this moment that Rachel feels bad, but she's going to like try and not tell her, but then she'll feel even worse later on, and she's going to like confess that something's happened to her dad. And that would be her story. That would be her doing something nice for the episode. What makes it feel really bad is that she tries to turn her into the villain. Effectively, actually, I remember she said it to her earlier, because this was how she first tries to get her to act like a villain, is she says that, oh yeah, Adam really connected with two girls, he said. So how did it get physical? And Anna says, oh, it didn't get physical. She said, oh, it must have been the other girl then. And she kind of implies who it is. At the ballroom scene, she tries to get Anna to go over and confront the other woman who seemingly has had some physicality with Adam. And she storms over, she's about to do it, she says, hey, I heard a rumor. But then she backs out of it and says, oh, I heard you were a good dancer, and she doesn't confront her. She doesn't get into drama, she doesn't accuse her of anything, she just backs down. And when she comes back to Rachel, she says, I just realized I was about to slut shame someone in national TV, and that's not who I am. And this is the moment. This woman has just proven that she is a good person, and that she has standards, and that she isn't willing to do something just for drama on TV. And this is when Rachel chooses to tell her that something happened to her dad. But what's sinister about it is that this is all the plan. This is Rachel realizing she can't manipulate her with her tactics so far. It's not going to work. She's too nice. And by telling her this, and effectively making her feel like she's not allowed to leave to an extent, and then Anna does run away. She literally becomes a runner, quote unquote, where Rachel gets on a golf cart with Jeremy as a cameraman to go and track her down and try and bring her in. And it all just builds up to when they eventually convince her to come back. And by this point, she's found out on the phone that her dad's dead. Right? Her dad has died. She's heartbroken. Rachel's saying, hey, let me take you back to the hotel, back to the set, and we'll get a car and a jet for you. You can go home. You won't have to be on the show. But as they pull up to the house, like all the girls are all standing there, they're getting ready to shoot the next scene, and Anna realizes that this is all a play to get her into the selection process on TV, and Anna flips out and starts yelling at Rachel. But notably, Rachel keeps just, and this is really subtle. I really like this. Particularly anyone who's ever done any sort of like TV production might notice this as well. but I think it's even there for people who don't. In fact, it's probably especially there for people who don't. Is that earlier on in the episode when they're doing interviews, the interviewer, whether that be Rachel or Shia or Jay, are always just a little off camera. And that's how you do interviews typically. You don't have the people looking at the camera, you have them looking at the interviewer who's just off camera. So the eye line's just always just a little bit off to the side. And that looks right? What's so neat about that is that you get to visually see what that looks like. So at this part of the episode, when Rachel turns around and starts yelling, "You're a monster, you're all monsters, you deserve to burn in hell," and she starts saying these big dramatic things, she's saying them to Rachel, but Rachel's standing just to the side of the camera, just like she's doing an interview. Meaning that the shot that Jeremy's getting on the camera is a perfect clean shot of her just sounding crazy. Something they can cut in however they want into any sequence or footage they want, and it'll make her look bad. And I got that in the scene. When you see how they've actually done it by the end, it looks really bad. But even in the moment, I'm like, oh god, this feels so bad. Rachel does eventually tell Jeremy to stop following her with the camera, although she still says get the bloody footprints because she's been running her bare feet. She still says get those. So there's still like, it's like, okay, it seems like she's showing concern for like a genuine human being, but she's also still thinking about what to get for the show at all times, right? She's very good at this, even when she seems like she's having doubts or guilt or whatever. So I liked all that stuff. It was very good. And this doesn't stop here. They legitimately let her go home, and they send Rachel with Adam, the bachelor, because Rachel thinks that he may be able to convince her to come back to the show, to her father's funeral. They're literally in the audience at the father's funeral. Adam tries to talk to her afterwards, and he's very nice, and Anna doesn't get mad at him, but says, "Oh, I can't leave. I got a 16-year-old brother. I'm now his guardian. I have to look after him. I can't come back to the show." Rachel and Adam then go to the brother, the 16-year-old brother, and Adam says a couple of things, and the brother, being a smart kid, just says, "I don't buy this bullshit. Like, you're trying to manipulate me." And Rachel says, "Okay, fine. Here's the deal, right? Your sisters get a chance at winning. That's $200,000 if she wins, possibly more if she ends up marrying this idiot. This is a chance of financial security for a long time. Your sister doesn't want to do it, but maybe it'd be best for her if she did." And when Anna sees this and comes storming over and says, "Hey, they try to convince you to get me back in the show," the brother, on his feet, turns around and says, "No, I'm trying to convince them," and explains, "Hey, this is a distraction. This is good for you. I can go stay with Aunt Beth," or whatever her name was, "for the next few weeks. It's not a big deal. It's not that long. Go back and be on the show." So they actually get her to come back to the show after having left to go to her dad's funeral. And to be fair, like, I don't think Rachel is lying to the brother here. I feel like she does think there's a chance she'll win, and it is that money. Now, is she supposed to be winning based on the storyline that the producers and Quinn are mapping out? I don't know, but clearly they don't always know who he's going to pick. Like, when we get the selection process again here, they're surprised he picks Faith again, and first even. I actually thought they were going to go for a really, really sad, like, bitter ending here, where he doesn't even pick Anna. After all this effort, after going to her dad's funeral and convincing her to come back, he doesn't pick her until last. And there was a moment beforehand where I thought, how much is she going to be pissed if he doesn't even pick her to stay? She came all this way back only to get dumped immediately. It would be infuriating. And I could almost see the show pulling that move just to be especially dickish. Now, admittedly, it goes against the idea that they want her to be the villain now on the show. But she comes up and says, "Don't you ever, like, put me through that stress again." She clearly was worried that he wasn't going to pick her. And he's like, "I'm sorry, they made me do it." Implying that they said to him, "Pick her last." For drama, pick her last. So, we see that the cut together tape that Rachel made of her being the villain, and it's intercutting the interview footage with the other girls, and then you've got Anna yelling, "You all deserve to burn in hell," and all this other stuff they cut footage of. And Quinn just flat out says, "Hey, we don't mention the fact that her dad died during all this," and she just looks like a psychopath. And that's perfect. So it does leave a bad taste in your mouth at the end of the episode for her, because I think Anna comes across as a genuine person for the most part in this episode. Feels more like a real character the more the episode goes on, because the more she's challenged by the bullshit, the more she shows her strengths, where she's not willing to slut shame someone. She's going to take care of her brother instead of being on a dumb dating show. And then after all this, that she's been convinced back, they're going to make her look awful. They're going to make her look like she's a bitch, effectively, right? And that's one of the ways that Rachel even tried to convince her to stay when she was packing her bags halfway through the episode. She said, hey, if you leave, like, they'll make you look bad. If you stay on the show, you get to have a say in what story is presented to people. And Anna says she doesn't care, but I feel that this ending is just truth to what Rachel was saying, except the lie was that if she stays, it won't be a problem. No, I think her staying is just giving them more footage that they're going to manipulate. They're going to make her look awful. And I think it's especially interesting to contrast with last episode, because last episode, the villain character did come across as a bit bitchy, right? I mean, she wasn't like a monster necessarily, but she did naturally just start saying a couple of mean things. She at least was fitting the role they were kind of giving her, right? They actually were treating a person as the villain who was kind of putting herself in that box. This is them taking someone who isn't a villain in any way, shape, or form and presenting her as one. And I can only imagine the reaction she might have when she sees the final edits of these episodes, when it's all said and done. I'd be curious to see if we get a reaction to like how stuff's presented after the fact somehow. I don't know if like maybe the actual filming of the show ends a couple of episodes before the end of the season and we get to see like the reactions to some of the big episodes maybe. I don't know. But I would be curious to see her reaction to see how some of this stuff is cut together. But yeah, so no, it's another good episode. I think it does a good job of, again, establishing this core divide in the idea that our main characters are manipulating people and disregarding their feelings for drama, but then have to suffer their own drama at the same time. Like, that dichotomy is very much kind of the heart of the show in a lot of ways. But then just did a good job of like really playing with the different characters. I feel like this episode did a good job of making me remember who Anna is. She's now an established character. She was basically an extra in the last episode. I couldn't have told you who she was after that episode. Last episode set up primarily Faith and I think Brittany, the one who left, right? So it left us with Faith. We know who Faith is now properly. This episode, I think, more than anything else, set up Anna, and now I know two of the girls fairly well. Like, as I remember who they are, their personalities, and it, you know, establishes some other smaller things as well, but that was the main thing. So, very good. Yeah. Rachel's roommates are especially vindictive. Like, she flat out does like a ransom demand and does release the ransom. Like, she hits that 10 o'clock time limit at the end of the episode and she puts it out, and I'm like, damn, this character really hates her. And maybe she's justified. Maybe she has, I mean, if you were owed 3 months rent, you'd probably be pretty pissed too, but she's especially going for it at the end of the episode. Like, I feel like if Rachel had just got the money like a minute sooner and sent her a photo of the envelope and said, hey, I've got money. I don't have it digitally, so I can't send it in PayPal immediately, but like, it's here, I've got it, it's yours. It might have been avoided, but of course, I think on a thematic karma level, Rachel didn't deserve to get out of it at the end, right? This in many ways was her just desserts for all the manipulation she did of Anna in this episode. She deserved to have this happen to her at the end. Not to say that I find the character unlikable, I don't. I think one of the things that makes the character interesting is that I feel like there is a good person in there that's maybe trying to fight to get out in some ways, and she is engaging to watch. But on a raw comeuppance level, she kind of earns this ending by the end of the episode, and I think that's interesting. So really solid writing and performances. Enjoying it so far. So this is a monthly show. I'll be back with episode 3 next month. So if you're watching along, let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments. If you've seen it all before, do chime in, but remember, don't spoil anything after this episode, both for me and for other commenters that are maybe watching along with the videos down below. So thank you very much. You can support everything over at patreon.com/MaleFuzzTV, and you can get some bonuses for your trouble. All the movie podcasts have bonuses over there. Check out Mail Fuzz Movies for all the movie podcasts as well. So thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?